Uncle Ron and stuff. Today's topic is solid state hard drives. What are they and why they're handy and why you want to use one, or if you buy a new computer, why you want one in there. Okay. Solid state drives have been around for, I don't know, maybe 10 years, but they've been very limited in their capacity and typically weren't used much. Now, years and years and years and years ago, I worked for a computer company, and they sold big sort of mainframe, big giant computers and went into businesses. And one of the things that was suggested and done was that all of the operating system, the main system that processed like keyboard interrupts and also ran applications, whatever they would all be put on what was available at the time, which was, I think, a 10,000 RPM hard drive. And a hard drive is simply like an old phonograph setup. There's a disc in there, the head comes over, you plop it down in a groove and it reads data. And the RPM has to do with how fast that disc is turning. Now, I'm old enough to know when they used to have 78 RPM records. That was the probably 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s. They had what was 78 RPM records, and your record player had to be able to turn that record on that turntable at 78 revolutions per minute for it to pick up a decent enough sound quality that was acceptable to a listener. Okay, the needle came over, went into a groove, it read the wiggles in that plastic, or in clay, in fact, or early RPMs, the records. So computers, the whole thing of retrieving data, these big massive storage, was hard drives. And I had an early PC, and they didn't, hard drives were, even a 10 megabyte hard drive was $200-300, so I had to use floppy drives as my storage medium, which were limited a couple hundred kilobytes or whatever it was. Okay, so over time, hard drives have gotten relatively cheap. They're put in just about anything. They've gotten miniature in size. You can have them in a laptop. And the size of the drive in terms of storage has gotten bigger and bigger. And anyway, the point being is that along has come what's called solid state drives, and they're not like the phonograph analogy. They use special sort of transistors that once you tell them to stay a certain way, they stay that way until you program change them. So they're like a long-term memory in that sense. They're just like what's in an iPhone. They tell you that you have 100 gigabytes or whatever it is of storage on your iPhone. That is all solid state. There's no mechanical phonograph sort of disc inside of there turning real fast and heads moving around and plopping down in a groove and reading a hunk of data. It's all solid state. Okay, hard drives, because they are mechanical, because the disk is running at a certain speed, and there are disks, the cheapest disks run about 5,200 revolutions per minute. The next highest up is about 7,200 revolutions per minute. And although there were some 10,000 revolutions that came on for the home market, they really never caught on. And the real problem was that they just couldn't sustain the shake, rattle, and roll that was present in the home market. Now, I worked on a particular job where they were going to put computers onto icebreakers. These are the big ships that go out and break up ice, and there's a lot of, when that ship hits a big hunk of ice, the ship vibrates like crazy. So there had to be special measures taken to insulate that hard drive in there from all that vibration, or the needle of it, in this particular case, it doesn't sit in a groove. It hovers like less than a hair above that rotating disc. And any sort of vibration could cause the head to hit the disc and destroy the data and destroy the head. Okay, so that's part of the reason 10,000 RPM drives did not have an abundant in the home market. 7,200 RPMs seems to be a reasonable, that's as fast as you can go. They still sell 5,200 RPM drives. You don't want one of those. Why? It's all mechanical. Unlike a record player where you put it in track 1 and it just reads track 2, track 3, it just keeps going. There's no real segmentation other than maybe a little quiet gap between tracks. It stays in a groove and goes across there. That's not true with hard drives and computers. Data can be stored all over that record. If you think about the record analogy, you have data in the middle of the record on just a little bit of it. So when you say I need that stuff, that head has to move over to that track and then drop the needle down, and may only need to read like 1 inch of that groove in that track. And then immediately has to be picked up and moved to another place, drop down, read more, and it's constantly moving. The head is constantly moving from track to track, from place to place across the disc. The disc is rotating at a certain speed. In the end, it can take milliseconds for the computer to get the data that has been requested by you or an application. Milliseconds. A millisecond is thousandths of a second. You say, well, that didn't tell you, that's not very much time. It's a whole lot of time when it comes to a computer. The computer is sitting there, it can be, the actual execution of the computer can be, oh, I don't know, 4 million instructions a second. But it's sitting there idling, waiting for the hard drive to supply the data that it needs. Okay. So along come solid state drives. And again, these are not mechanical drives. They're a type of memory that retains itself after you turn power off. The normal memory in a computer does not do that. You use it while the computer is on. Things are put into memory, pulled out of memory, take it from memory, put out to a hard drive, take it from the hard drive, put it in the memory, so on. But once you turn the power off, all that memory you have, it just forgets where it is. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't remember anything. Solid state hard drives are different. It's a type of memory that remembers the last time you wrote to it. Whatever you wrote to it out there, like my name got written on a solid state drive. If I go to call up, I want my name. I search for my name. It will find where I wrote it that one time. Okay, no mechanical involved, which means no head moving around like that, which means no rotational disk. So instead of milliseconds as a retrieval time, it's not infinitely faster, but it's way, way, way faster retrieving data than the old hard drive. So the point being is, one of the system improvements you can make to your computer, and I said again, back in the old days, computer companies, when they sold a big mass computer to somebody, they tried to talk the buyer into putting a very fast drive, maybe high RPMs or special drive, to hold all of its applications and the operating system. That would make it very fast overall. If you had lots of data, you had other drives for that, and you could somewhat afford the time it took to go get massive data off. But for the operating system and what it needs to do and how it's constantly jumping around, requesting the printer needs to want to do something, or this needs to do that, or even moving the mouse around to respond to that, you want that stuff to be in memory or in very fast retrieval mechanism like a solid state drive. So if you buy a new computer, you will most likely get a solid state drive as your C drive. You may or may not get what's called a D drive, another drive. In most cases, what they've done is taken the one drive and divided it into two pieces, one called C, one called D, but it's on the same physical device. A solid state drive looks like a regular drive. It's a plastic box of such and such, and it fits in your computer. And that's most likely how they give you a D drive. Now, a D drive can be a normal old hard drive, mechanical with the spinning photograph record and the needle, and it's 7,200 RPMs. Especially for, that's long-term storage is really what you want a D drive for. You want to put all your data, things you don't access very often, like photographs, copies of things, documents that you did once but you don't want to lose. You don't want those on your C drive, you want those on your D drive, where, yeah, it takes time to retrieve it, but it's not that critical. You're not doing something really in a time crunch. If you're playing with heavy graphics, for example, you want all that, everything, on a very fast drive, i.e. a solid state drive. Okay, so you buy a new computer and most likely will have a solid state drive in it. It may be formatted to be C and D, I don't know. If you have an older computer, you most likely have an old hard drive in it, an old mechanical spinning photograph with a head moving back and forth. One of the speed improvements you can make, and it will significantly improve the speed of your system, is if you replace your C drive with a solid state drive. Now, how do you do that? You have to clone your old C drive to the new solid state drive. You can buy cloning software. There is free cloning software. It takes a little bit to do that, or if you ever have to take your computer into Geek Squad or somebody like that and your hard drive is bad, insist upon getting a solid state drive as your C drive. C drive holds everything related to Windows. It holds all of the applications that you have on Word and a photograph or Ancestry.com. All those applications will be put on the C drive with very fast retrieval when it needs portions of that program. Insist upon a solid state drive. If you don't have a solid state drive in your current computer, you can upgrade. Maybe Geek Squad can do it for you. Maybe you can do it yourself. Maybe you have a friend who's a tech geek and he can do it for you. It will significantly improve the overall speed of your computer by going to a solid state drive. The other thing you can do to speed up the computer, if it will allow it, is to add more memory to it. Most computers that are, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years old are very limited in the amount of memory they have or they can actually support. It's gotten better over the years. Most manufacturers now are supporting more and more memory, and you need as much memory as you can possibly get. Windows itself eats up massive amounts of memory just to turn the computer on and for you to get it to do anything. If you have 4 gigabytes of memory, 3.5 of it is probably used just by the operating system, just to get Windows to come up. That's all. That's not to run any applications at all. That's just to get a properly Windows, so it'll respond to your commands and it'll load a program or do whatever you want it to do. It takes about almost 4 gigabytes of memory just for that. So if you have 6 or 8, you don't have a lot. It may meet your needs, but if the memory gets short, it doesn't have enough memory for whatever it's got to do, it starts doing what's called paging, and that is it moves part of this memory out temporarily to your hard drive. If it's an old mechanical hard drive, it's a very slow write operation out there, and then the application comes back and starts doing it. It says, oh, I need that piece. Now you got to go out and retrieve it, bring it back into memory so that Windows can do something with it, and it really slows down your application, slows down everything. The more memory you have, the less pushing stuff off to a hard drive and then bringing it back you'll have to do. So performance for any computer is have a lot of memory. I think some computers at this point are supporting as much as 128 gigabytes of memory. That way you can have very large like video processing applications going at the same time without having to go back and forth to a hard drive. If you can afford it, now solid state drives are up to, I think, 2 or 3 terabytes, maybe 4 at the most. They're still not massive. You can buy a 10 or 16 or a 20 terabyte mechanical hard drive. I have a 10 terabyte mechanical hard drive at 7,200 RPMs, which I use to store all my data on and take it to the bank and put it in a safe deposit box so that my photographs and my documents and all those critical things cannot be lost. I told the bank person, I said, you ever check out your bank vault? Is it EMP proof? I think it probably is more EMP proof than anything else you can think of, or I could think of. It's got massive concrete walls and steel. So if electromagnetic pulse or a nuclear burst went off overhead, hard drives stored inside of a bank vault would probably survive. And you go, well, but none of the computers. Well, I at least have that data, and at some future time, somebody could maybe read the data off that hard drive that I have kept there in my repository, my off-site EMP hardened repository. So they make 10, 20, probably 30 terabyte hard drives now, which are mechanical. The record player of the needle. Solid state drives will eventually get larger and larger. Right now I think they're limited to 2 or 3 terabytes in size, but that will more than handle what I call a C drive. All of the Windows all the Windows code, as well as most of the applications that a normal person would be using. Now, if you're a big video freak, maybe not, but otherwise. So I'm suggesting if anything in the future, make sure you have a solid state drive. If you like your computer now, but it's got an old mechanical drive, especially if it's only a 5200 RPM drive, most people don't know what speed they have. And by and large, if you're buying a computer at a retail store or someplace else, to make it be cost competitive, they put in an old 5200 RPM drive, and you'd think that's the performance of what you get. This is too long. I'm just suggesting, I don't sell hard drive, I don't sell solid state hard drives. They are called solid state disks, I think. SSD, solid state disks. I think that's what, if you look them up, that's how they'll be referred to. And they look like a hard drive. They're usually smaller. They look like the form factor of the old 2.5 inch laptop type of hard drive. They're sort of in that format. So if you were to buy one and put it in a regular computer, you probably have to deal with the physical mounting differences because they're not the same. If it's a laptop, it's probably 2.5 inch by such and such. The only difference on laptops is maybe the thickness of that drive, and it can be a 5 or 7 millimeter thickness. So you have to make sure that you get a solid state drive that has the same thickness as whatever hard drive you currently have in your laptop. There are mounting equipment, mounting kits for mounting a 2.5 inch drive in a regular desktop computer. That's not a problem. You can come around those. And the power source and the USB connectors are the same on a solid state drive as they are on the old, for the last 30 years, mechanical hard drives. The old 5, 5200, whatever they are, 5000 Revolution, 7000 Revolution mechanical drives that have heads moving back and forth. Enough of, I recommend SAT solid state drives for any computer. If you buy a new, make sure it has solid state drive. If you have an old one and you like it, but it's, you can think about it, you take somebody else can do it for you, or the Geek Squad, I don't know. Anyway, that's enough today. This is the 20th of February, 2025, and I'm having backups and things going on in the background, so